other countries, in Albania, young people face multiple disadvantages going onto the labor market. The first one could be that they don't have the right skills that the market is demanding. The second labor market disadvantage they face may concern the fact there is low demand for the skills they have or for workers in general, because enterprises are not growing. And thirdly, there could be also a certain level of demotivation that may kick in at one point in their life, particularly if they've been trying to transition from school into the labor market and failed on several occasions. So we have realized that, and through the Youth Employment and Migration Program, we are trying to tackle all those three challenges at the same time. At the moment, YEM is piloting two innovative active labor market programs, one called Work Training Programs, which is again a combined intervention where we provide classroom training together with the on-the-job training, enterprise-level training to people coming from disadvantaged backgrounds. We're talking about people who are normally sitting in informal employment. And on the other hand, we also have a pilot program that will allow young Albanians who are graduating in foreign universities to come back on an internship program here in Albania in the private sector, and then subsequently be able to identify whether, for instance, a self-employment could become a possible career path for them in terms of becoming themselves entrepreneurs. Of course, YEM is going to intervene also at other levels, including the policy level, but we are trying to make sure that policymakers have the relevant information as to what exactly the young people in the country look like. What are they doing? What have they studied? What are their expectations and dreams about their future in life? On the other hand, they should also know what enterprises are looking for, what type of profiles, what type of jobs will be available in the future. We're trying to collect as much as possible information on the two sides of the labor market and create a level of policy dialogue between policymakers, for instance, and enterprises, where they can talk to each other and work coherently on programs and frameworks that will help young people on one hand to acquire the necessary skills that they need, and on the other hand to provide those skills meaningfully to the enterprises that will actually generate sustained economic growth for the country. We're going to actually bring in the private sector very actively in what we do through public-private partnerships for youth employment. We have created a framework for that, whereby we envisage private sector intermediate organizations to play a very strong role in terms of bridging the information gap with regard to the labor market. In that sense, we hope that private sector intermediate organizations like chambers of commerce or employers organizations in general will be able to identify the skills needs of their enterprises, of their members, but also beyond that in the private sector, highlight the profiles that are needed by enterprises and advise the national institutions and also the program as to what type of profiles need to be created in order to better service the longer term needs of enterprises and private sector in general in Albania. In the spirit of One UN and in the context of a joint program, what the Youth Employment Migration Program is doing is leveraging the competitive advantages of all the different agencies in terms of delivering what they can do best in a synergized context that looks at their ability to impact on the issue of youth employment. The partnership is led by the ILO, which is a technical agency on matters of youth employment, which means that there is also methodological coherence at the policy level, whereby all the different contributions of the different agencies are brought together in a framework, and they all also bring in the stakeholders and partners that they normally work with. So if you look at the ILO, for instance, it would be the social partners. If you look at UNICEF, it would be the target group, the youth that they normally work with. So in that sense, there is also an element of bringing together people that maybe prior to a joint program framework wouldn't have worked necessarily together. Hence our philosophy is that while we work at the policy level, we also try to some extent to go into direct implementation to see what works and what doesn't, while we build the capacity of institutions to do this in the long run. We have decided to start small in Kukës and Shkodra, working with what we call regional employment boards, which are already working, for instance, one of them is already working in Kukës. Together with regional employment boards are multi-stakeholder groups comprising of the regional authorities, the private sector, labor market institutions, relevant NGOs and youth organizations. We identify priority areas under the framework of youth employment where an intervention from the program may be needed. In particular in Kukës, we are planning to work with Don Bosco to conduct what we call ABCS training, which is an initial training that targets, as I said before, those sitting at the bottom of the labor market, young people in informal employment who haven't been approached yet by labor market institutions, trying to generate that level of motivation in them, provide them with the basic skills, and then put them on a track that will allow them also to identify what they want to do with their lives, what are their expectations, and then choose a career path that could be plumber, an electrician, or whatever, and then provide competency-based training on those specific profiles.